Okay, let's do it. Hey guys, Jeremy here from School of Wok Covent Garden. It's Wok Wednesdays or Wok Less Wednesdays, and this week it's a vegan ramen, and trust me, it's super tasty. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So, ramen, guys, is all about the stock. I think a lot of questions around sort of making a vegan ramen is sort of how you get that base of flavour without the bones and the sort of pork fat and all those things that are very un-vegan. So actually what I like to do is sort of chunks of your base, but you can see I'm actually keeping the skin of the onion on. We're going to sieve all that out later anyway, so the more flavour I can get from every single ingredient, the better. Garlic, it's going to go into the stock for like 2-3 hours. Again, there's so much flavour in garlic skin that you just don't know. In fact, you can use garlic skin, just the skin, to make an amazing garlic oil. And actually it's better than with the actual garlic cloves because the cloves have lots of moisture and you don't want to add moisture to your oil. We've got some dry shiitake mushrooms. I mean, they're going to soak in the stock for like 2 or 3 hours anyway, so that's all there. I'm going to add a bit of spring onion to this, but everything for the stock, just sort of rough chunks, is absolutely fine. Keep the roots on, don't waste anything, get every bit of flavour into the base stock. Don't forget your ginger. So a thumb-sized piece is good. So you do want to peel your ginger, because it's got a bit of bitterness in it, and you don't want that bitterness to go into the stock. It can be sort of roughly bashed and straight in with the rest of the veg. The only other thing that sort of helps to sort of replace that depth of flavour, that sort of savoury or umami flavour from your bones, dried soya beans. So if you're making a vegetable stock without, say, the shiitake mushrooms or the dry soya beans, you'd only really get sweetness from these vegetables, but with things like your shiitake mushrooms and your soya beans, you're going to get a real savoury depth to your vegetable stock. Next up, you want to sort of sear your vegetables, but not too high a heat. I'm on a high heat right now, but as soon as I start cooking it, I'm going to bring that heat down to medium heat and just slowly sort of fry that off. I don't want to go too brown with this veg, but I do want to sort of bring out all the oils and the flavour from the base veg. You're going to cook this for about 5 to 6 minutes, and once it starts to sort of soften up and all that flavour sits at the bottom, you want it to stick a little on the base before I start to deglaze and bring the rest of the flavour in. So you can see the base of the pan, the vegetables starting to stick a little bit of brown, not burnt though, which is great because we want to deglaze that pan and get all that flavour off the bottom of it. So I'm just going to add a bit of my vegetable stock, and you can hear that immediate deglaze. Give it a good scrape, get all that flavour off the bottom of the pan and into the stock. And at this point, once you've deglazed the pan, you can turn the heat right up and then top it as far up the pan with your stock as possible. Next up, your shiitake mushrooms, which you'd usually soak overnight, but we're going to cook this for 2-3 hours so we can let that bubble away. And then a good sort of 2 to 3 handfuls of these dry soya beans. They'll create a sort of similar flavour to that bone broth or that fat that would come from your pork, but also a slight creaminess in the stock. You just want to bring that to a boil and then let that go on a rolling boil or a sort of simmer to rolling boil for 2 to 3 hours. It'll get deeper and deeper in flavour and you'll get that ramen that you want. So, it's a vegan ramen, so I want to make my vegetables nice and tasty. Not just sort of leave them as they are. So I'm going to make a miso glazed carrot and tofu. The carrots, we're just going to go into nice slices. The thing about noodle soups as well, you don't need excessive amounts, so 1 carrot will go a long way. The tofu, I haven't even pressed it really. It's a firm tofu, fresh tofu. So I'm going to go for relatively thin slices, about 3 to 4 millimeters thick. And I'm going to pan fry this, get a nice texture on it. And then I'm going to make a miso glaze. It's very simple. Get different types of miso. I've got white miso here, which is essentially a rice fermented soybean. And you can see the color of that. And then I've got, this is more like a red, or some people call it a brown miso, fermented for a slightly longer period of time. And different grains are sometimes used, so barley, things like that. And a mixture of barley and rice will help to ferment this. So I'm going to use the brown or red miso for my glaze and my white miso for the actual stock later on. You want about a tablespoon of miso. Miso can be quite salty, so we're going to balance that saltiness out with some golden syrup, naughty stuff. A tablespoon of that, and that will help caramelize those carrots and tofu. Give that a good mix. It already smells delicious. It's the type of thing that you could just sort of dip and eat. My mum would tell me off for that, but that is really nice. Right, a tablespoon of Japanese soy sauce, and you can see that sort of thinned out the consistency quite nicely. And then we're going to go for just a base, so a teaspoon of Japanese rice vinegar. I don't want it to be sour, but I'm trying to sort of get that balance of flavour that is sort of really unique to this type of cooking. Teaspoon of sesame oil. You might need a little bit liquid when you're sort of cooking this with your vegetables, but we can look at that later on. Literally just a bit of water, a dash of water here or there, that's all you'll need. Okay, so you can see the consistency is quite a sort of runny toffee or caramel look, and that is going to taste delicious. I'm going to fry my tofu first. And I don't mind sort of cooking this and pre-cooking it with the glaze, setting it all up so that when I'm ready to serve my ramen, all I'm doing is sort of compiling that dish. I don't mind if the tofu and the carrot and the glazed carrots have gone a little cold, because they'll heat up again just from the hot stock. So you want to crisp up your tofu nicely. You want that nice golden brown colour on it. I'm just going to get rid of this excess oil before I start to glaze that tofu. So I'm going to use half my glaze for my carrots, half my glaze for my tofu. So I am going to just thin that glaze out a little. A couple of tablespoons of water will help with that. And then we'll use this half first, straight over the tofu. Doesn't take long to glaze this at all. You can see how quickly that sort of caramelizes up. Great color there, slight charring. And that is ready for later if you can bear not eating that straight away. So same again with your carrots. Although with your carrots you can be a little bit more rough and ready. If you want to cook your carrots quicker, just a little dash of water. High heat, let that water evaporate. Okay, so my carrots are pretty much cooked. Glaze on a high heat again, straight over the top. And that sort of balance of soy sauce, that vinegar that just sort of works with the golden syrup, and that base of savoury from the miso. Oh, I'm getting excited, but I've still got about an hour left for my stock, so calm. So once your carrots have got this nice sort of light charring around the edge, then they're pretty much ready for later. They're soft, sweet, salty, savoury. Oh, naughty carrots. Last couple of things. Got a bit of fresh pak choi here. It's a large pak choi, so I'm going to go into sort of 8s. Give that a wash. And then some spring onion, just for garnish. Aside from that, we just need to season your stock when it's ready, get some more white miso into that stock, and then cook up your noodles, and then you're ready to serve. So my ramen stock has had about 2 to 3 hours of just simmering away and getting all that flavour in. So I'm just going to sieve that through. Now I haven't actually seasoned this at all. I'm going to use a couple of these mushrooms as well. Slice your shiitake mushrooms. So I've got my clear stock, which I'm going to start to season up. It's got all that flavour from the mushrooms and the soya beans. Got white miso here, so I'm going for a good heaped tablespoon of white miso. Just want to melt that into the stock. And it's always good to taste your soup before you add your soya sauce or any other flavour to this. You can see what that sort of fermented soybean, that miso, does immediately to the stock. So it brings out that creamy texture. My noodles are soaking in hot water from the kettle. Ramen can be a bit more sticky than like an egg noodle or things like that. So if you bite into it, at the moment it is still a little dry, and I will boil it into the soup. What I'm going to do is to sort of stop it from going over sticky. In another minute or so, I'll strain that, run it under cold water, and put a little bit of sesame oil around the outside. I find that quite useful to keep every strand of noodle nice and separate. I'm going to put a tablespoon, and a bit of light soya sauce into there. Have a little taste. Oh yeah, that is good. Really deep savoury. You wouldn't miss the meat there. My noodles are well soaked. They've had about sort of 8 minutes or so. I'm just going to dunk them straight in some cold water. Stop them from cooking for a second. They are going to go back into the stock, so they'll boil through quite quickly from there. So just a little drizzle of sesame oil around your noodles. It's absolutely fine. And then we're starting to finish our dish off now. Your noodles go in the base, so if I was making this up sort of plate by plate, sort of restaurant style, then you just take enough noodle for your bowl and just cook that through first. 3 minutes, those noodles should be cooked nicely. Right, so my noodles have sort of boiled into that stock or that soup for 3 minutes. So not long at all, and they can just go straight into my bowl. For one bowl of noodles, a couple of bits of pak choi, absolutely fine. I'm kind of just blanching this pak choi for not even sort of any more than a minute or a minute and a half. I want to keep its shape. I'm just cooking out its sort of rawer texture and flavour. We can put some shiitake mushrooms in there straight away. You can see my pak choi just sort of going a little translucent on the stem there. A couple of pieces of tofu with some carrot. Doesn't take long. So it's nice thin pieces. Carrot in the centre there. And then a good ladle of that deep savoury stock. Remember, this is vegan, but when you try this at home, you'll know what I mean by not missing out on flavour. It really is delicious. I'm going to say simple, but it's not really that simple. It takes a little bit of time. You've got to give this some love. So, 2 to 3 hours of boiling that stock. And that's what makes your good vegan ramen up. Your tofu and your carrots, miso glaze, some shiitake, and whatever veg you want on the side. Well, a really deep flavour. That stock with just that little bit of miso, glazed carrots. Honestly, as a meat eater myself, I'm not missing the meat. That is a great dish. Vegan ramen. If you like this type of cooking and you want to learn more, don't forget, guys, to subscribe to our channel.